I'd like to show you why knowing your why is the start of your journey. Without a strong why, it can be so difficult to reach your maximum potential. My name is Dr. Jason Ballara, and every week I meet with real estate investors and mindset specialists that are taking action in order to build a life according to their own terms. We will break down what drives successful people and allows them to achieve at such a high level. If you are a professional wanting to break through, or simply someone that wants to hear an inspiring story, the Know Your Why podcast is made for you. Hi everyone, I'm Jason Ballara, and this is the Know Your Why podcast. I'm here today with Mandy Mcallister, who has been kind enough to give us her time. Mandy is a multifamily real estate investor, a mindset ninja, an eternal leader, and a coach and a dot connector. Her passion is to help others define their path to financial freedom through syndications, coaching, and her platform, Aspiring Women Achieving More. I'd really like to hear your story, Mandy, in your words. I think that's way better than me just reading this very impressive bio. And I think we're both parents, and I see that the end of your bio talks about your son. And I think that's often a inspiration for people, at least it has been for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Gosh, Jason, thank you for the chance to have this conversation. I really love a chance to dig in with people from different walks of life, and let's do this.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I grew up on a farm. Both my parents were self-employed. My dad a farmer. My mom owned a small gift manufacturing business. So I always kind of had entrepreneurism in my blood. So I was like 12 years old and I started sewing scrunchies that matched for all like the local volleyball teams in the late 90s, you know? So I had like $3,000 as a 13-year-old and I didn't know what to do with it, right? So I was bit by the entrepreneurial bug. Ended up following undergrad to Georgia to play volleyball, and was in 1999 on a patio of some house where a friend explained her dad bought the house and she rented the rooms to the rest of our friends. And I'm like, and you get to keep that money? That is
Genius.
the best idea. Oh my, right? And then subsequent to that, read the Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Richest Man in Babylon, all of those books that are gateway drugs to all this mindset, real estate investing stuff. But then I didn't really, buy an asset for express purpose of investment until 2016. And not coincidentally, my son was born in 2016. So literally 3 or 4 weeks after I bought my first asset, my kiddo was born, because this switch flip that, oh gosh, this is not a dress rehearsal, this is for real.
Yeah.
So
That's that's exactly what happened with me in terms of that switch flipping. It's like I've known for a long time that real estate, people get rich in real estate. You read all the books, you can listen to the podcasts and things like that. But it wasn't until I realized that I wanted to have freedom, time freedom, right?
Mm-hmm.
The money's nice, but that's not even really what it's about, I think, for most of us that are really going through, and you need some motivational thing to kind of get you to that point. So for you, I feel we share that. It's when my son was born, that was kind of the time that I was like, okay, this really needs to happen.
Mm-hmm. And I'll say too that it was just I bought it for it was going to be his college fund. That was what caused me to be interested in pulling the trigger, right? Because this little bitty fourplex, I'll pay it off by the time he's ready to go to college. Pull out, however much I pull out, and that is automatically his college fund. I still have a cash flowing asset. So I do think that is an excellent strategy for anybody who wants to get started. I mean, you got time on your side. You're not going to screw it up really if you've got time on your side. So that being said, though, it kind of bit me by the bug, and I realized the opportunity that was in front of me if I just continued to act pragmatically in that direction.
Sure. So on that note, where did you go from there? You got the quad for your son, and then kind of obviously have grown.
Yeah. Well, as I got that quad, I, signed up to, with a group, because I've got to tell you that, 5 years ago or so when I started, there weren't as many free resources. There weren't as many podcasts for just free learning stuff. And the chance to really involve yourself with a group of people headed in the same direction. Because I'm a single mama that, has basically 2 jobs like plays whack-a-mole with her life. So to all of my friends, I'm a freaking weirdo doing a bazillion things.
Yeah.
But when I get in the same room with other people who want to run at 100 miles an hour, like real estate investors, like the women in the mastermind that I just joined, like I feel normal and I see people doing bigger stuff than I've ever dreamed of. So I believe very firmly in involve yourself with people go in the same direction as you are and you'll go further faster. So I joined a group, ended up simultaneously basically buying a 6-unit and buying into 130 unit syndication to see what that was like.
Right.
We've gone full cycle on the syndication. And I mean, a thing that I kind of learned in that process was, what do I love about multifamily? The control of the valuation, the ability to really pop an NOI so I can increase the value and take money out of it or sell that asset and have a significant profit. For me and my approach, I really want cash flow. I really want control of as much as the asset as possible.
Yeah.
So I've kind of painted myself as this small multis girl and have really started operating largely in that 4 to 50 unit wheelhouse.
Sure.
And been doing a little bit of teaching on that too, because you get more control, you get a lot of the upside of multifamily, and you're not, a 5% owner of a 20% GP that results in not a ton of upside for you.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that strategy honestly becomes more and more appealing to me the more I look at it. So on the syndication, were you a part of the GP or you were an LP in that one?
No, I did it to learn. I did it because
Right.
I'm a medical device sales rep. That I've been with a bunch of different companies, and you roll over an IRA.
Yeah.
I didn't want to mess with my liquidity because I saw the power of these small multis for my own accounts, and I chose to self-direct an IRA and put it into the syndication so that I got to do that learning and keep myself as liquid as possible at the same time. So,
Yeah.
it was a great experience. That it was a friggin' home run. The deal that I was a part of, we made 50% on our money in 22 months. They exist,
That's fantastic. Yeah. Right.
but for me, owning a larger proportion is more interesting.
Yeah, sure. And I think, for a lot of people, it comes down to, just like you said, the control of it. You can have even more power in sort of the manipulation of that NOI and what you're going to do to add value to that asset is if you essentially own it yourself or with a small group. So I think that's fantastic. And I think what you talk about with the syndication and using your self-directed IRA, I think a lot of professionals don't know about that. So I think getting those strategies out there to people is, I think, very helpful. Almost every job has, you have a 401k or something like that. And as you said, you switch jobs and now you have this 401k just sitting there. And I think a lot of people just leave it sitting there. And that's money that you could really be, if you earned a 50% return in 22 months, like that's a great way to grow your wealth. So that's fantastic. And so you did the syndication. Now you're focusing on these smallish. I still don't think 50 units is small, but smaller than, the huge syndications. But at some point it seems, and maybe this wasn't a switch, maybe this was just your mind opened, but you got into mindset. Your bio says mindset ninja. Like I love that. I really do love that sort of transition because I feel like it's happened. I wouldn't call myself a mindset ninja, but I have realized the importance of mindset when you start getting into real estate, just in the sense of like the size of the numbers you're talking about.
Yeah.
Right. It's just like you go from talking about seeming like hundreds of thousands of dollars is a lot. And then you're like, maybe $1 million's not that bad. Now 10 million's a lot, but like people are talking about 50 and $80 million deals. So it's just kind of adding those zeros get crazy. You have to change your mind. So I wonder if you could speak a little bit to, sort of that, your journey into the mindset.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I feel like any new endeavor you're taking on, there's a new set of fear that
Sure.
sets in,
Yeah.
you know? And for that fourplex, Jason, that fourplex that I bought, that first one that I was shaking in my boots and I was so scared that it was going to go wrong this way and that way, it was $120,000 fourplex.
Right.
I bought it at 30 grand a door,
Yeah.
you know? So back then, like it was a fear that I had to push through, right? So I had to like harness whatever mindset, whatever, to get through that. And I'll tell you too, that most recently we took down a 53 unit in the middle of COVID. So in September of 2020, and it was a new set of fear things to push through, right? And one thing that I figured out, it's, you know, even though I was born to entrepreneurial parents, I was the straight A student who did everything right. And I just showed up and I did everything I was supposed to. And this perfect little girl, blah, right? The fear of making a mistake, because that's how I grew up. That's how I lived my life. I didn't know how to make a mistake or fail at anything. So to venture into anything entrepreneurial, to wrap my brain around that this is actually learning, and you hear this. I mean, anybody listening to this podcast, like, yeah, I've heard this 142 times. But the thing is, the hack for me, it's like, you know, it came from reading a bunch of books and this idea in Stoic philosophy that if you just like get comfortable with the downside, what is the worst case scenario that might happen? And is that something that I can get comfortable with? So in the fourplex, it would be, you know, gosh, I could have 3 of these tenants not paying for most of the year, and I would still break even, you know. It would, sure, that's fine, I can push through that. And then on the 53 unit, I learned that we had we did the worst case scenario on that. We had a 42% economic vacancy break in. That means 42% of people not paying their rent. And, you know, we would still be able to keep the property. We wouldn't make any money, but we would keep the property. So what I did there, and this is just to kind of take a full circle of how someone might push through that fear. I realized the people losing their jobs in COVID were like your bartenders and manicurists, right? Not your computer programmers and nurses. So if you've got a college education type job, then you're more likely to keep your job than if you didn't. So I went to the property manager and got all of the applications to live in the property, and I made a little pile. All right, at risk job, not at risk job, at risk job, and I got really comfortable with that downside and realized, oh wait, only 12% or something of these people have scary jobs, and I can be vacant to 42%. Let's do this.
Right.
So
yeah, well, and it just comes down to literally just breaking down the numbers to where you can say, okay, this is scary, here's worst case scenario, but also what's the likelihood of actually having 42% vacancy? Right. Like something really bad would have to happen. Something really bad just did happen and they didn't have 42% vacancy. Like it's just kind of, it's a very important part, I think, of that, you know, sort of mindset shift is that, okay, really, what's the odds of these really bad things happening that we're all scared of? Because I think everyone starting out is, and I think that's where you have to shift your mindset. I think realistically, you know, and you probably see this in sort of your non-real estate investing career, this stuff exists in every field, right? People are scared of the what ifs, and it's like, but really probably the scariest thing of having a W-2 job is what if you lose that job?
Yep.
Right. So go ahead.
I mean, I have actually, so I love the title of your podcast so much, because this why, what is your why thing is so deeply ingrained in my journey over the last few years. And actually, we didn't talk about this, but today launched a book that I was an author in. There was it was a multi-author book. It's called Aspire: Women Finding Their Purpose. We've actually hit some bestseller lists, which I'm super proud of.
Awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. So we're, you know, it's the journey that I talk about in my 3,000 word chapter is, you know, I was a single mom, basically in my day job. A boss was asking me to do stuff that I knew was not okay. I knew it wasn't okay, but I was a brand new single mom. And I mean, if I were in a position, I knew that I had passive income coming in that would support like feeding me and my kid and paying our mortgage. You know, we'd be eating rice and beans, but that didn't matter. We would live.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
so I was able to like live by my moral compass, to live with authenticity, because I had my basic needs met. And you know what? That is a security that is not afforded to you by an employer,
Right.
you know?
Right. And the reality is, if you work for someone else, realistically, you're replaceable. And
Oh yeah.
it's in order to, make the, I guess, stand up for what's right is probably, kind of a simple way of putting it. And I don't want to minimize, kind of the reality, the enormity of what that actually means for some people in situations of work. But I think a lot of people, they can't do that because they don't have anything else. There is no backup plan. And it's like, it's just, okay, if I lose this job, what's going to happen to me, right? What am I
Yep.
going to get another job? Is it going to pay me as much? Am I going to be able to feed my kids? And I think, sometimes you get into that fear-based
Yes.
motivation, whereas really what we should try to look at it from is like the exact opposite of that, right? The fear should be not having a backup plan, not that I have to stay in this forever, that kind of thing.
Mhm.
And so I think it's, for me, I don't really intend to necessarily leave my sort of day job as a surgeon ever because I love it,
Mhm.
but I want to do it because I love it, not
Yes.
because I need to do it to feed
Mm.
my family, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like that's my, sort of motivation behind it. And I think you're kind of right on track with that. And since you sort of brought up, and again, congratulations on the book. I actually saw that on
Thank
Instagram, and
you.
I was going to say that, but tell me a little bit about the Aspiring Women Achieving More. You can see it
Awesome.
behind you there in your background.
Yes.
Tell us.
Absolutely. I want to add one point to what you just said, though. There's
Sure.
a book called Anti-Fragile
Mhm.
that it's, in that speaks to exactly what it is you're saying. So if you're, some things like a glass ball, that's flat, fragile, right? But some things like trees become stronger when hard winds hit them. They are anti-fragile. They're made better by things going badly. And if you can set up your life so that it's anti-fragile. So if you think about it, if you spend every dollar that you make as a surgeon, as a sales rep, as a cashier at Starbucks, it doesn't matter. You live a fragile life if you are living on that kind of teetering edge of
Yeah.
every dollar is being spent.
Yeah.
You are anti-fragile if you have passive incomes coming in. So that's an incredible book that you can add to your little
Yeah, I
bookshelf
need some more
back
books
there.
on the
Yeah.
shelf. So that's a perfect one. I'll definitely pick that up.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Aspiring Women Achieving More was really just born of, there's not a tremendous number of women in commercial real estate and in, kind of coming up through apartment investing. There were a few of us that kind of banded together and we started a book club because we show up as these professional women and sometimes we forget how to be girls in our lives, and things like we would discuss that type of stuff that, is very vulnerable. It's
Yeah.
not something that really hits, normal conversation waves, right?
Mhm.
So we realized, oh gosh, we've got something here. We feel so empowered by each other, so lifted up, so able to celebrate. You guys, guess what? I just took down a 53 unit, $4.1 million asset. If you say that at a cocktail party, they'd be like, oh, nice, must be nice. Good for you,
Right.
right?
Right.
No, like I want to surround myself with people that realize how hard I worked, how I fought tooth and
Yeah.
nail to find the right deal to high five me in that. So we started this Facebook group. It's just a free resource where, one of my girlfriends from old volleyball days just celebrated that she found a new job. We got to celebrate this book, a couple of the other authors I know from the group. So I firmly believe that just one generation ago, there was one woman who broke through that glass ceiling and was in the C-suite, and everybody else would look at her and kind of hate her a little bit, because
Yeah.
she was the only one.
Yeah.
But now this generation that I find myself of female leaders as a part of, that, it is incumbent on us that because there are more seats at the table, that we have to lift girls and women up and clap loudly for each other to completely change that paradigm of mean girls in the business place.
Yeah.
So that is the goal of it. That's what we do. We provide free accountability and a bunch of motivation. So I'm going to make sure I give you those notes for the show notes for women to.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely do. If you don't mind, I actually like to sort of touch on this topic, because I listen, when I listen to other podcasts and I see things on Instagram and all of this stuff, and there's a lot of, not a lot, there are some groups specifically for women, kind of building them up in real estate or in the business world. And I think that's fantastic. What I sometimes wonder, so in veterinary medicine, I work with a lot of women.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So it used to be a male dominated profession. And now it's probably flip flopped. Most of my technician are women, most of the doctors, it's a lot more, flipped to that side. And so I'm kind of around strong women all the time. Right. I just, to me, that's normal. And so I see all these groups, and it's like, it's actually a little bit hard for me to fathom thinking of women as less, not as powerful, whatever that is. And so it's not that I don't believe that it happens, but it's like, I see things like this, when the Me Too movement thing happened, and I start hearing all the stories, and I'm like, guys really do this?
Yeah.
Like, that really happens? And it's kind of terrifying. I'm actually about to have a daughter, and I'm like, all of this is very, kind of relevant, another add to my why, right? But it's another thing that I'm like, I want to make sure that she can be around things like this. And so I sometimes hear women on podcasts and things, and they'll ask questions like that, to me sound a little bit belittling, I guess, and I'm trying to, I don't want to call anyone out or anything, but I just think it's fantastic. And so I wonder, kind of, I'm sure this adds to your why in terms of what your focus and your end goals can be.
I'm sorry.
No, I'm having trouble with how to exactly ask the question, because I think the question is a humongous question, right?
Yeah.
It's like, why is the world the way it is? Which is not really something we can fit into this hour.
So I love that we're asking that. And what is your why? It's like, what is the meaning of life? Why is the world? I like that we're keeping it simple, like we're just entry level.
Right. We'll go right to the easy questions.
I love it. I love it. This is like the juice. Like I always say to my girlfriends, like, listen, I love a manicure, but I need to talk about more than my nail color, So anyway, I'll tell you, I'll kind of speak to kind of echo what it is that you were saying. I was, climbing the corporate ladder. Like I was a perennial top performer in medical device sales, which is kind of, or at least 15 years, 16, 17, how many years ago, when I started a male dominated industry. Sure. And I found myself at the top as a former college athlete, as a competitive, smart girl, right? And I just kind of thought that the women who didn't make it, they just didn't try. Like I thought that there was something to that. Yeah. Like deep down, and I didn't mean it to be a prejudice about my own gender. Gosh, no. But I just thought that I was yoked as this competitive person in a way that other people weren't. And maybe that's why it was easier for me. I just thought it didn't exist systemically the way that some people would say, like women are held back. And then I got pregnant. And then I was the top performer on my team, and there was a management position open, and I wanted to throw my hat in the ring. And my boss, a female, told me, Mandy, you can't apply for this job because of your baby. And the wind was knocked out of my sails in such a way that I'm like, I mean, is this candid camera? Is this a joke? Right. Like this is, and then come to find out it was her boss who, and I try to look at it in a way that, mindset ninja-ing myself. Yeah. Right. That he must mean, like, it's not easy to have a newborn. I get it. I would have been going through training at the same time. A big life event and going through training for a new position at the exact same time would be very difficult. But the way it was received initially by me was, you can't do this because of your innately womanhood, Right. So I mean, I'm careful. Like I have seen both sides of this coin, but what I do firmly believe is that there's tremendously different ways at looking at things. And if I look at my work in terms of outcomes, there's ways to achieve things in those outcomes that I can maybe get something done in 2 hours. It might take somebody 20 hours, because of how I look at it. And it's as, I mean, I don't know that I'm answering the question well, but I've seen both sides.
Yeah.
And I think that there's an innately different way of dealing with things with a feminine energy and with a masculine energy.
Mhm.
And in business, we've been, mostly masculine for the entirety of how we know Western
Yeah.
business, right?
Yeah.
And now this, operating communally, operating with empathy, operating with full communication, those are innately feminine energy type things that we're in this paradigm that is swinging because we've done all that, for lack of a better way of putting it,
Right.
discussing masculine stuff, the winner take all type of stuff. And now we're getting a lot more done if we incorporate the communal, empathy, take care of each other,
Sure.
feminine type energy. So I don't think we're totally there yet, but I think we're on a really good path, and it's incumbent on the people, the doers, the in-it-ers,
Yeah.
to make the space for everyone at the table.
Yeah. I didn't ask the question well, but you answered it perfectly. That's exactly what I was sort of getting at. And I think that, I mean, even just putting that answer out there, I think will be really inspiring to other women. I was going to say young women, or it doesn't matter. The age really doesn't matter, because it doesn't matter when you start, right?
Mhm.
At some point, if you've got to shift your mindset, you can do that whenever. It's great. Like, you were essentially entrepreneurial from a childhood age. Some people won't. That's okay. Like, just whenever you realize how to use that to your advantage, you you didn't take that promotion. Instead, you bought a quad and set your kid up for, right. Exactly. You just did something.
And retired at 40,
right.
No
You
big
did
deal.
Something better. How about that?
What a gift. I mean,
Yeah.
seriously, what a
Right.
gift that those two jerk bosses, well, jerk, they're kind humans in their own right, but
Right.
these people who didn't know any better,
Right.
what
Misguided.
a gift
Right.
these misguided
Yeah.
individuals gave me,
Right. In hindsight, they really did you a favor.
I'm gonna send them a fruit basket when I retire,
Yeah, they gave you another realistically better pathway for you to have financial and time freedom that you can spend with your son. So I mean, I think that's, I mean, looking at it that way is fantastic. I wanted to maybe, I don't want to keep you too long. I wanted to ask maybe a few questions that I sort of, some of it we've answered, but I think I want to sort of specifically point out, given the name of the podcast, what is your why? I think you can summarize, because I think you've touched on a lot of it, but really, what is it?
I went all the way down the Tony Robbins self-development rabbit hole over the last few years. And there's an exercise that we do that you spell out, what is the purpose of my life? And that was incredibly life-changing. So if anybody's listening here, really, pay attention to, some words that matter to you, some words that you live in your core, and words that are aspirational to you that you're living towards. So I, Mandy Mcallister, am a kind, powerful, and authentic gift from God. I positively impact every life I touch, especially women and girls, and I can solve any problem in front of me. That is my why. That is my impact. I am an incredible mother. I am an incredible friend. And my life is about spreading inspiration, happiness, and joy with every step.
That's fantastic. Duncan is a lucky boy. He's got a
Aww.
very powerful mom. Tell me something that you would like people to know about you that maybe they don't. A hobby, whatever it is, something that you want to get out into the world to let people know you better.
Well, I mean, I grew up a farm kid. So if you ever need to bale hay, Jason, I got you.
Funny, I have actually done that as well.
Yeah.
I really enjoy it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I worked on a horse farm when I was in college. So I was basically the guy that would go and get the hay and feed all the horses and things. So that's very funny.
I was like the one girl they made do it, because I was a volleyball player through college. So one of my very best group of friends. So my recruiting class for that year was, I'm Mandy, but I'm Amanda. So it's Amanda, and Amy. We call ourselves the A team, and we're taking our 9 collective children to a house in the mountains in Georgia for a vacation here. in
awesome.
about a month. So,
That's going to be
so
a
yeah,
blast.
it's going to be so fun. And I am an excellent tetherball player and Sudoku player.
Wow.
So watch
Wow.
out. I
That
mean, if you ever want
that's
to race Sudoku, I
yeah,
got
no,
you.
that you got that one. I'm terrible at Sudoku. I don't have I don't know, I don't have the mind for that part of it. That's I won't even try to compete in that one. I'd play volleyball sometime. I enjoy volleyball,
Yeah.
but I wouldn't try to compete with you in Sudoku. Um, we'll have it in the show notes, but how would you like people to reach you?
The very best way to contact me is at mandymcallister.com. The info for my investing group, Good Fortune Capital, my Aspiring Women Achieving More. We've got some like gear stuff that's been super fun, women lifting up women stuff. Everything that I do is on mandymcallister.com.
Okay, perfect. That's a good central site for them. What is there anything that I can do for you or anyone listening that we can do to help you reach goals, succeed even more than you already have? What would you ask of us as listeners to this podcast?
Actually, okay. So the thing that juices me most in life is impacting lives in a positive way, right?
Sure.
So in 2018, I think I made it a goal, the New Year's resolution thing, to positively impact somebody's day every day.
Mm-hmm.
So the week after you listen to this, go out of your way to do something kind for a stranger each day. If it's buying coffee behind them, if it's taking their cart at the grocery store, if it's, I work in hospitals, so I pushed a lady in a wheelchair because she was waiting to go somewhere, whatever it is that you can come up with, the joy that you will feel in yourself doing it, and the people's days that you'll make, gosh, we together doing little things like that can change the world.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I think people underestimate the amount of joy you can feel in yourself just by helping someone else a little bit. I mean, it is pretty remarkable. And if you do that, so that is a challenge we'll put out there to people: a week of doing something, at least one thing kind for someone else every day of that week. That would be perfect. And I will participate as well. Is there anything else that you would like to share with the world?
I mean, the paying it forward, the doing big things, if you're a woman and you want a little more inspiration, find us. In the show notes, we'll put the link to Aspiring Women Achieving More. And never feel like you don't belong. I've had a lot of reviews of our accountability group that, oh gosh, so many of these women are so far ahead of me. Well, we're welcoming you into the table, right? And you've got to start somewhere. So if you feel like you don't belong, show up anyway. Do it scared, because you belong and you can do it. Yeah.
Nobody starts at the top.
Yeah.
Everybody has to start somewhere.
Anything we're doing well is we're sucking at in the beginning.
Right. Right. I have to remind myself that very often. It's definitely a good thing to keep in mind. Well, listen, Mandy, this was awesome. I really enjoyed it. Thank you so much for being on the podcast, and we'll get all of your information in the show notes for everyone. Thank you very much.